Hey, welcome to the Everything SEO podcast. I'm Michaela, a stay-at-home mom of 3 who just happens to be in love with everything related to SEO, blogging, marketing, coffee, and we're shedding light into the many mystifying corners of search engine optimization and what that means for us service providers, small business owners, and bloggers. We're going to ditch the do-it-all narrative surrounding SEO and really sit down and craft strategies that are sustainable, but still get us those first-page results. Now let's get cozy, grab your fave sweater and a cup of tea, and let's talk everything SEO. So if you know me, I am huge into blogging. Like, what introduced me to SEO is blogging and content SEO. So it's needless to say, it's probably my favorite part of doing SEO. And so part of doing a blog is understanding the different types of blogs. And I like to separate these into 2 main types. We have your non-traditional and we have your traditional. And we're going to talk about each different type, and I'm going to give you a little bit of background about them and about when they can be used, how they're used. So just sit tight, and I do recommend listening to the whole thing because you might find that 1 or 2 types really align with your goals or your business, and some types just are not it for you. So stick around to the end just in case those last few I talk about, those non-traditional types, are the ones that really get the inspiration going. You're like, okay, this is something I can do. This is definitely for me. And yeah. So I normally like to keep these episodes about 10 minutes long, and I will say that you might need to stick around for about 15 to 18 minutes. That's what I'm guesstimating. But it's all good info. But let's just get straight into it. So the first types that I'm going to talk about are the traditional types. And when you think about blogging, you're probably initially thinking about these traditional types. So the first one that I want to talk about, or like the first set, is what they call in journalism 5 W's 1 H. And this is what, why, when, where, who, and how. So that's your what articles, your why articles, your when, your where, your who, and your how to's. Super standard additions to any blog content calendar. Like, if you have tried to plan out your blogs, you've probably had 1 or more of those types of blog posts in mind. And that's because they're very popular. They hit a lot of search terms, like this is what people are asking. They're asking how to do stuff, what to do, why you need to do it, or why it happens, when you should do it, where, who. Like, these are all questions that people are actively asking. And that's what makes it such a great base to build like a blog from. Now, next, you're going to have your complete guides. This normally encompasses all of those. So you're going to list all of the what, where, when, why, who, and typically more. So a complete guide is like all-encompassing, everything you need to know about a topic or how to do a specific thing. These are the posts that typically hit those 2,000 words, 3,000 words because they are so like hefty. Next is your news articles. So any like news publication that you're going to online, the articles that you read are blog posts, essentially. They're just news. We typically, as business owners or bloggers, don't rely on news as much, because it's so short term. So when you do a news article, you try and look for something that is going to be more long term, because anything short term has probably already been overtaken by the big news sources, unless you're just super passionate about that and that's your whole thing. And then that's totally fine. But as a normal, everyday, like entrepreneur, business owner who wants to start a blog, news articles are typically not what we lean into. Next, I'm going to talk about is listicles or list post. And I kind of put roundups right there with them. Normally, a roundup, it can be like from other people, but it's essentially just a list in the same sense that a listicle is just a list. It's like your top 10 of this, your top 10 of that. Top 10 email subject lines. That is a listicle. Very popular because you can get a lot of information all in once, or you can provide a lot of value at once. And they are great for blogging because people want to have those listicles. They want to have those options for what they're searching for. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about in like the more traditional style is one of my favorites. And I think that every business owner, blogger, or anybody who has a blog should really look into these because there's so much opportunity there, is reviews and comparisons. So a review or a comparison. So a review is, you're just giving your thoughts, your honest thoughts, and like feedback on a tool or a product that you use. So for example, a tool that I love to use is Pixie Stock. Pixie Stock has like Canva templates. They're a photo subscription site. So you get stock photos, the Canva templates, business templates, and then they have a social media account. Like they have a lot going on there. But I use them often and I love to use them. So I wrote a review and I tell about the pros and the cons, stuff I love, stuff that I think has space for improvement. And of course, I added in my affiliate links. But now I have a review post that I can send my audience or people on Google can find me through because it is SEO optimized. And just fun fact, I am ranking first for Pixie Stock review, or at least as of recording this episode. But you have that post to like share to your audience and share the behind the scenes and give some insight on like how you run your business and what you have going on, what you use in your toolkit, and people love to see it. Comparison is kind of the same, but instead of just focusing on one, you're typically comparing tools. So like MailerLite versus ConvertKit, that would be a comparison. All right, so that's it for the traditional. And now I want to talk about the non-traditional. And this is what, if any of the traditional, you're like, okay, this just doesn't seem like a blog post that I really want to do, or I can't see myself like sitting down and just writing one of these out, non-traditional might be for you. So non-traditional style blog posts include case studies, which you can optimize case studies too for SEO. But case studies, so your client story, the results, the how you did it, any of the behind the scenes, and just include those in there. And then this one might be my absolute favorite to do because I do this for my clients as well, is turning your podcast into blogs or blurbs. So a huge misconception about turning your podcast to blogs is, yes, you can do just like straight podcast to blogs, but you can also do podcasts to blurbs. And the reason I call them blurbs is because it's like an extended version of your show notes, and it's written in a little bit different way. So you're going to give like a little summary and then some of your main key points, possibly a quote or two, and then like it'll have your links, and it's going to be optimized for SEO, which means that it might not be exactly like your episode title might look a little bit different on your blog versus on your podcast. And or if you did an interview, like the interview might look a little different, whereas you might have the person's name, you might also have their profession, and just we're going to get more into that in a little bit, not today, but that's going to say that for another day because I think that turning podcasts into blogs and blurbs needs its own little dedicated series just to make it easier and to get some insight on that. But for now, we're going to move on to the next one, which is interviews. Interviews are a fun part of blogging. They're not as popular as they used to be. So now interviews normally come from podcasts and not like one-on-one interviews, but I occasionally see them and I absolutely love them. So interviews, you would focus on like the industry SEO or the profession SEO. So instead of focusing like how to do something, it would be like ranking for those keywords that were like, okay, this is a blogger. So you would try and rank for a keyword related to bloggers, like the top mom blogger or something like that. Next is probably my favorite for photographers because I've seen them get the most use out of this, and it is portfolios. So you can turn your blog into a portfolio. And I talked about this a little bit in the last episode. But your blog post can be a portfolio piece, and you would style it as like your header, blog post title would be what your shoot is or why it is, like why you're doing it or where it's happening, and maybe something special. You play around with keywords, but then you put your little blurb about the shoot, and then the rest is pretty much like all of your images, or at least the highlights of the shoot that you would want somebody to share, that somebody looks at and just goes, wow, I need to book. Like, I need this photographer. for myself. This is also a great opportunity for like designers, graphic designers, website designers, logo designers, so brand specialists, because they can showcase the work that they've done. And you can do this in like just one dedicated post, or you can mix like a portfolio with a listicle and do like your top designs for an audience or an industry and build it out that way. But it's just such a useful blog type for visual industries. All right. And last on the list is checklist. So this is a type of blog post that I've kind of seen have rising popularity. And it differs a little bit from listicles or how-tos because rather than, it doesn't necessarily take you step by step, and it doesn't necessarily list like all of the options. It's taking you, it's a checklist. That's essentially what it is. So you'll have your different sections dedicated to each part of your checklist, or maybe they break down the checklist in a small thing that's actually a checklist, and then they break it down further in the post. But these have become super useful for like, you know, your tax checklist, blogging checklist, because those keywords are there. And so having a blog post that matches that search query just kind of really helps. So hence the checklist style was developed, at least in blog posts. But that is all of the different types of blog posts that are probably most relevant to you, or maybe one or two is more relevant to you. And each of them kind of shine in their own light. In a good content schedule, like a good content plan is going to include multiple different types. You don't want to put all of your eggs in like one basket. You want to keep a little bit of variety. So if that means you're switching between like some how-tos, throwing in some case studies, maybe a checklist here and there, or a listicle, that's great. Now the only exemption to this is probably podcasts to blogs or blurbs, and that's because your podcasts are probably naturally a mix of the different types. So you already have that diversity. So that's it for today, but I did have two kind of announcements that I wanted to leave you with. So the first one is I have 4 content kits planned this year, one for each quarter, and they're all going to talk about a different type of blog posts, and they're going to be as done for you as a content kit can get without actually being done for you. So the goal is to take your writing process from 3 to 5 hours per blog post to 1 hour, maybe 30 minutes tops. I'm giving you the keyword templates, the prompts, the structure. I'm telling you what to put in where. Now, the second announcement is the first one is coming up soon, and to kind of give you some insight on what it's going to be, we're going to host a 3-day challenge. And I want you to do this 3-day challenge. It's going to be on the podcast, but for you to get updated on when the episodes air and how to participate on the inside look of the challenge, because there are going to be some actionable steps that I recommend you take. I highly recommend signing up in the show notes below to get notified and to kind of stay in the loop about that. So this 3-day challenge is going to tackle everything that you're going to need to know for a review blog post. So we're going to talk about finding an affiliate program that you want to be a part of for one of your favorite tools. And we're going to talk about what goes into a review blog post that makes it good and makes people want to both read and buy. And then on the third day, we're going to talk about putting that blog post together and making it SEO optimized, because there are a few little details that I think are important and that make a huge difference in how your blog post is going to perform. And I'm not just spilling the beans on a theory. This is the same recipe that I used to make $1,000 extra last December through affiliate marketing, through review blog post. So if you want to get notified for that, just go ahead and hop on the list down below. As always, I hope you were able to learn at least one new thing today and how you can apply it to your own business or blog. Thanks for listening to this episode of Everything SEO. Don't forget to hit follow so you don't miss the next episode. It's a goodie, and check the show notes for everything we talked about today. And come connect with me on Instagram at comamama.co if you have any questions or thoughts you want to share. Talk soon.